amazing things in his business. Recently just joined Real. We'll talk about that later. But I want to introduce you to my man out of San Diego, Jason Cassidy. Jason, what's up, man?
What up? How are you?
Good, man. Hey, we've gotten to hang out a little bit recently, not as much as I'd like to, but it's great seeing you and great having you on the channel.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was good seeing you in Dallas at the Tom Ferry Summit. We had a little Real meetup. Shout out to Katie and Bob Katie and Tim for hosting that. But and we got to meet there and talk for a bit.
Yeah, man. That's what I love is that we keep doing fun events like that, so we get together and meet each other and stuff. So, well, cool, man. So let's talk about your business. So you've been crushing it in San Diego. You're doing a lot of things for you and your business. If you want to like talk, lightly about what your numbers are, and then I want to get into like the nuts and bolts of what content you're doing, all the fun stuff you're doing in your business that's generating leads that other people could probably emulate, or R&D, as Tom would say.
For sure. R&D, baby. So I have a team here in San Diego. We work in downtown San Diego, although, I mean, we work all over San Diego. But I have a team of 7 now, me plus 7. It was 5. And then when we joined Real, we had two new team members join on. So it's me plus 7. Last year, when it was just the 5 of us, we did 75 transactions for about 62 million in volume.
Nice.
And I'm still in production. So I did about half of that. I did 28 deals for 28 million or something along those lines. And then my team, kind of took up the other half. And we have team members ranging from newer team members to, first year to one, Amanda, my top dog. She's been licensed longer than me. And so a little bit of a mix, and we sell all over. So I live in La Mesa, which is about 10-15 minutes east out by San Diego State. But we sell, our furthest deal was up in Oceanside last year, which is about 40 minutes north, just before you get to Orange County.
Nice, man. So I don't know if I told you this. I actually owned a home and lived in like Otay Ranch area.
Yeah.
That Otay Ranch Mall is in Tula.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see the ocean. I could see Mexico and the Olympic Training Center all from my house.
Yeah, for sure. So Otay, East Lake, that entire area, depending on where you're out on the hill, you can see the lights of Tijuana down to the south. And then you obviously can see the ocean if you're perched up right. That's a bustling area. That part of Chula Vista, that East Lake Otay area is just popping right now.
Yeah, that was a cool area to live in. It sucks because it was really far, but definitely a cool area. All right, man. So look, you got team members. You're doing a little over 60 million. You did 62 last year. You're going to crush it this year and do what, 150 million, something like that. Crazy.
Working on it.
Right. You just made the move to Real, but I want to hear from you, like content wise. What content are you putting out that's actually getting business? Because I always talk to agents that are like, okay, I'm putting in all this content, I'm doing all this stuff, but the reality is sometimes that content doesn't actually get us business. I mean, with the YouTube channel, we're crushing, making money off YouTube, yet I see people doing Instagram and all this other stuff, not making money off of those things. So what are you doing in your business that's really crushing, like content wise, that somebody else should jump in and try doing?
I think that the most under kind of like utilized arbitrage of that real estate agents are missing out on is agent to agent kind of like centric content. It's something that I didn't necessarily like get into that content game thinking that was going to be like a revenue source for me. And so what happened about 2 or 3 years ago is I started to grow my agent following. I did this giveaway, this partnership with the broke agent where I gave away some of his books that he wrote. And then I got like 1,000 followers in one day, but they were all real estate agents. And so like, then I started noticing that the real estate agent content that I was putting out, like I did a behind the scenes where I showed how to do a video CMA. It's like the CMA, but show your screen and like this thing. And I got hundreds of DMs that were like, this is amazing, from other agents. And so what happened when I started growing the agent to agent following was I started getting referrals. And it's so funny because like, I never necessarily sought out to do that. But over the last 2 or 3 years, my business has been predominantly agent to agent referrals from Mark in Boise, someone I've never met before, but they follow me on Instagram. And so that was probably the coolest thing with the content that I started putting out, where there was more of an agent centric focus on it. And then I started to get agent to agent referrals from it. And I thought that was pretty rad.
So how much content a day do you put out? So are you doing just Instagram or TikTok? Which one's your go-to?
Instagram's been my go-to for 10 years. I started in this business in 2012, 10 years ago. And that was right about the time that Instagram started kind of taking off as well. 2012, I think that's when they got bought by Facebook for $1 billion. And they started kind of just like growing as their own kind of entity. And so it was always really natural for me. to post on Instagram. And, you know, what I really loved is when they actually dived in and did stories, because it allowed us to kind of micro content. At that time, I was doing some Snapchat too, but Instagram stories really changed the game because it, you know, in the old Gary Vee-ism, it allows you to document, not create. And so, like, theoretically, creating content's hard. We talk about that all the time, like in our mastermind groups and stuff like that. We even just talked about it before this call, batch contenting and stuff like that. But documenting what you're doing on a daily basis is easy, and it's free, and you're already doing it. And you can be so much more raw and unpolished with your documentation of what you're doing. You know what I mean? So, like, even here, while we're before the end of this call, I'm going to do a quick little pan, you know, like you may not even notice it, but I'm going to do a quick little pan showing that I'm doing this call with you. And that'll go on my Instagram stories. And so Instagram stories, there's going to be multiple posts a day, but it's because they're 15 seconds or less and you can do it raw, but it's showing kind of subconsciously that, like, hey, I'm here in real estate, I'm working, I'm doing stuff without actually like braggadociously saying it like on your feed.
Right.
And then when it comes to like the feed content, I try to do, we were just talking about that. I try to batch content and do at least 1 or 2 videos released a week. But ultimately, like sometimes that'll range anywhere from once a week up to 3 times a week, you know, depending on what it is. And I can, now you can see, I see you're scrolling. You can range anywhere from live videos to I've started to lean into the green screen videos a little bit. Those seem to perform really well. And then as you go down, you'll see some of those educational videos, which are like the, you know, how to price your home in this market, or how much does it actually cost to sell a home. Some of those 60-second market update, right? Those are all professionally shot videos that I did specifically for Instagram in a vertical aspect ratio. And so obviously those always do really well too, because those are very clean and polished.
So you're doing a good mix between like just you on your phone doing little lives, and then a good mix between like curated content where you're sitting down doing it in front of a person. When you're hiring a videographer, I think this is what a lot of people have questions about, right? It is the videographer, because you see people like you just crushing it, and you're able to actually leverage and do more business just by spending the money on a videographer. So what's that cost look like for you when hiring a videographer, and how many videos do they put out for you?
Good question. So the videographer, I always say the average videographer video is going to be somewhere around $200, and that could drop as low as 100 or 150, depending on, you know, if you're getting them in bulk or something along those lines. But and when I say that, I mean like the sitting down 60 seconds to 90 seconds in a controlled environment, where that's very easy for a videographer to shoot. They set up on a tripod, and it's very easy to edit. Plus, usually when I'm talking, it's just talking straight through. There's not a lot of cuts. So it's very easy for them to edit even. So those are going to be really cheap videos, right? But if you were to get out into like a neighborhood spotlight or something where you're walking around Otay Ranch and you're just like looking at all the houses, that's a much tougher video to shoot, because now you're out in the elements. There's sound issues, there's lighting issues and stuff like that. So it could start to get a little bit more expensive. But like for us, we actually, funny enough, we started a video marketing company on the side, ancillary, called Studio. And so what we do is we help shoot, we help real estate.
Did you just say ancillary or an auxiliary?
Ancillary.
Okay. I was like, Tulare, California is a little far from you, but okay.
No. So we started an ancillary business, which is basically a side business, but it still has to do with real estate, where we help real estate agents produce better video content. And so we at Studio, we charge $1,000 for 4 videos. And we actually game plan with the clients. We sit down and we'll actually give them the scripts, and then we'll shoot it for them. So that's $250 a video. But like I said, I think you can usually find it between $150 and $200 if you just want the videographer to come, you know, set up in your office and shoot for you. Yeah,
that's nice. So on YouTube, when I started YouTube, I was doing all of the walking around, showing everything, and then 4 months into me being super uber consistent, that little thing came around called coronavirus. And so I was actually going out and doing like walkthroughs where I was like meeting people and like, hey, can you say these crazy Texas words? Right. And it was really funny, great content. And after that, I was like, man, nobody's watching. Nobody's going to be wanting me to throw a camera in their face right now.
Yeah.
So I bought a green screen and shot everything myself. And like, I was amazed at how much content I could actually shoot in a day versus having to drive from one spot to another and just throw B-roll over the top of it. So
it changed the game, right? I mean, COVID changed the game a little bit to the point where we like, now look at us right now, right? How many of these have you been able to shoot where you can get someone from San Diego on and we can sit here and rap for an hour or whatever it is, thanks to Zoom or thanks to streaming. It really did change the game. There's no excuses for content anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's, for all those agents that during that time, you find a lot of agents that jumped on TikTok, right during that time, and kind of got famous in a time where people are just sitting in front of their homes. And those people are getting tons of views and they're getting business out of it. You have other people that, like me, that did YouTube. And so all it took was just the effort. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like any agent that's in the business right now at some level needs to be their own media company.
Correct. Yeah. So that was one of the original things that I learned 10 years ago. I read Gary Vee's Crush It book, which is his first book, which is funny because it's like probably outdated now. If you read it, it talks about like Tumblr and all these different things. But in there, the core concept of that book was that you're not an X, you're a media company that does X, right? So you're not a real estate agent, you're a media company that sells real estate. And so it's like a little subtle thing that switched in my life like 10 years ago. And I started to think about everything I did as a media company. What shows am I putting out? What content am I putting out? Are people consuming it? Which channels am I using to distribute them? And then from there, I basically also then parlayed that into selling real estate. But everything we do in real estate is great content too. You know what I mean? Showing these, I don't know. Not everywhere, I guess, but like for the most part here in San Diego, we go show houses and there's sick ocean views or there's beautiful, you know what I mean? And so like, that's pure content right there. We can just turn the phone on and you've got content at your disposal. But even if you don't have like sick houses, if you're in, I don't know, I keep saying Boise, like shout out to Boise. I don't mean to pick on Boise, but if you're in Boise and your houses don't have ocean views, it doesn't matter. Cause like the water guy who comes into your office and changes the water, he has personality, right? So you just start documenting that stuff. You have more content than you think.
Right. What's that soundtrack on a reel going around? Everything is content. Everything. Yeah. Yeah. Every time I start to shoot something, I'm like, oh yeah, this is content worthy. I mean, my son's sitting here watching Mr. Beast for 6 or 7 hours straight. Wow. And, every little thing they did, it was content. Right. And so I think people miss the point I'm trying to make is that I think a lot of agents, they get bogged down with like, I got to create this content. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid somebody's going to not like me or whatever. So for those people that are not creating content and they have all these roadblocks they've built in their head, what's your advice for them for getting past some of those roadblocks?
I think the easiest way is to start going back to what we just talked about, documenting instead of worrying about creating stuff. You just document what you're already doing. And you may think that it's kind of boring, right? But there's people are voyeurs. They like to see inside other people's houses and they like to see what you're doing on a daily basis. Yep. And so people are going to tune in. And so you don't actually have to worry about creating a ton of content if you're just documenting what you're doing already. And then secondarily, you don't have to be on camera to start. Like until you get a little bit, I always say like get your at bats. Like I do think that you should be on camera. I think it's the most important thing for your brand, especially if you're trying to grow your business through video marketing. That being said, if you're not comfortable with it, start doing stuff off camera where you're behind the camera. You're just showing what you're looking at. And then you're going to get familiar, comfortable with your voice. And then something's going to come up where you're in it and you're going to start to like be okay with it. And then you're just going to grow into it. But ultimately, if you can just document what you're already doing on a daily basis, and you don't have to start on camera if you're a little bit nervous, but ultimately that's the goal. You can start from behind the camera. I think just getting the content out there of what you're doing on a daily basis is a great start. And you can utilize different things too. Like if you go, you had my Instagram pulled up there, right? You can, if you pull that back up, I don't know if that's easily accessible for you. If you scroll down just a tad to that video right there, where it says the most expensive home for sale in San Diego, it's a green screen video. It's got 5,700 views. That one right there, it's the blue. So that is basically just me recording a green screen of the most expensive home in San Diego. And I just sorted by, heavy. Now I put myself on it, but if you're not comfortable there, just do a voiceover there. But you could theoretically just do a video of go to Zillow and look up the most expensive home in your neighborhood and then walk people through it virtually. And like right there, that's pure content. People will want to see inside that. You know what I mean? And so I did this little teaser in the thing where I talked about the golf course nearby. But theoretically, for the next part, I just literally show the inside of the house, right? You can start doing virtual property tours of the most expensive homes in your neighborhood. And those will do really well on Instagram Reels and TikTok.
You're blowing up my spot here. That's how I grew my channel, and how I broke into luxury in Austin. Because before I started my YouTube channel, my price point was like $350. Well, I started doing the YouTube channel. I was like, there's a site that's private. It's in Austin's like Austin Luxury Network. So I got in there, I got in, And so all I would do is find the most expensive homes on the lake, most expensive homes in this area. And I would take their B-roll and it was just me talking about like, look at this. Like, can you imagine having a table that big? Like, how cool would this be?
Yep.
And those videos didn't like go crazy, but guess what? I'm selling a ton of luxury real estate now because of videos like that.
For
So
sure.
what you just said, if you're listening to this video right now, what Jason just said is insanely important. Do green screen, throw it behind you, show a most expensive home, show a home that just listed in your neighborhood. Can you believe this home is listed in my neighborhood? And then send it, like, tag your neighbors, right? I mean, how easy is that? If you want to sell in your neighborhood, you got to be in front of them, right? Be your own content creator and create, obviously there's going to be rules and stuff involved, but I always like to like give the agent a shout out who's listing it is. That way they don't come back to me and get mad. But
for sure. I mean, think about what does well on HGTV and Bravo and all these shows, right? The real estate shows, there's fix and flips and stuff like that. So do your own version of that. Say, go find a flip that was done in your neighborhood and then go find the before pictures and then show the after pictures and then be like, hey, this house just got flipped in our neighborhood. What do you think? Like, check out the before and check out the after. And people will love that. You know what I mean? I think that's super easy. I think that the really successful shows like $1 Million Listing and stuff, those were about the personality of the characters. So that's where you get like someone like who's very comfortable on camera and can really tap into their personality to do well. But like, honestly, you could theoretically have an entire channel just showing off flips in your neighborhood and showing the befores and the afters on video and then talking about them, and you'll do really well, I bet. And no, I haven't seen that done yet, but I think that would be a really good channel.
I mean, how hard is that? It's not hard at all. And I think so many agents get stuck on the process and how to do it instead of just doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Done is better than perfect. We say that in the office all the time. Like, and that's the thing, especially when you're starting out, is you're so concerned about being perfect. Because usually for what we've seen our entire lives growing up is we saw a perfect final product on TV. And so we are comparing it to that, but social media is not like that. In fact, raw does better. You know what I mean? People want to see raw. People want to see the blemishes, so to speak. And so sometimes that's why I try to mix in the phone content with the produced content, because I typically see sometimes that does even better.
Right. So beyond just virtual content that you're doing, video content, what are some of the things that you're doing in your business? Like, what other marketing pieces besides video are you actually implementing in your business that are getting a return on investment?
We work with a company called Accredited. They're a marketing company. Shout out to Jimmy and Chris and the guys over at Accredited. So they handle our inbound lead gen. So we do Google pay-per-click and Facebook ads. And so that'll generate anywhere from 10 to 15 leads a day, and that go to my team. Right. I haven't taken a buyer lead in 3 or 4 years. And so like my team into the CRM, they'll get a jump ball alert. So everybody gets an alert at the same time. Whoever swipes it first gets it. They have to call the lead. So we do online lead generation. And then secondarily, we do some geographic farming. And that's me specifically in the neighborhoods that I've already had a lot of established business in. So I try to geographic farm. We work with a company called Celebrity Agent. Shout out to them. They do handwritten mailers for you as opposed to like postcards. We do a little bit of a mix of both, but for the most part, Celebrity Agent, handwritten mailers to our geographic farm. So agent to agent referrals through video content. Now at this point in my career, past client referrals and stuff like that too. And then for the team, we do geographic farming and Google pay-per-click or online lead generation with a little bit of Zillow sprinkled in there.
I like that. I like that Celebrity Agent for cards. I had to write that down. So I want to talk about both of those things separately, though. So Curator, what's the cost for that? And this is not me trying to plug Creator. I'm genuinely interested. So what's your cost to do that? And then what's your cost? Like, I think you have a deal with them, but like, what would somebody, if like I were to join Curator, what would my cost to get in? And then what would my monthly ad spend? And like, what would I actually probably see out of it in return?
I feel bad because I've been with them for about 5 years and I don't know if these are the right numbers anymore. So don't slap me on the wrist, Curator, for saying these if I'm saying these wrong. But when I joined it's $12.75 a month, and that's your website, CRM, and content database that they provide to you, as well as an email tool, kind of like a MailChimp. It's a proprietary MailChimp type thing because they send out your blast emails for you too, your email marketing. So all of that encompassed was together at $12.75 a month. And then typically they wanted to see somewhere at least about a $500 ad spend. And that would be to Google pay-per-click or Facebook. And so you could be in for about $1,700 a month. So it's expensive. That being said, I always felt like it was the best ROI. I've been with them for 5 years. And so it was obviously I wouldn't keep doing it if I wasn't interested in them. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's
it right here.
No, that's not it. It's curator.com, I think. Scroll down, just scroll down a little bit more. You're missing a Y in their name, I think.
How do you spell it?
There's a Y after the A, before the T, right? Try that. There you go. That's it. So ultimately, like, and to be fully honest with you too, obviously, if people are like, oh, $1,200 is too much. When I initially saw Chris and Jimmy, so I'm very much betting on the jockey, not the horse here. And then the horse happens to be a freaking thoroughbred too. But when I saw Chris speak after he wrote his first book, The Conversion Code, I knew right away that I wanted to be in that ecosystem. I was like, I want them to handle my marketing. And so I actually demoed with them back when I was an individual agent, and it just wasn't, it was too much. It was like $1,200. I can't, that's too much money. And I didn't have a team at that point. And they're basically saying, like, we generate so many leads for you that you're going to want to get a team or an ISA or something like that. So about 2 years later, once I had kind of more established myself, I ended up going back to them, getting into them, and I've been with them for 5 years.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because I talked to Ken Posick about Curator about a month ago.
Yep.
I think it's really important that people understand that you can't just have just Instagram. Like, you can get a lot of business from Instagram, but unless you have other pieces of your business, you're missing out, right? So that's why I think having something like Curator or something like, I use Chime at Reel, and I get a ton of leads from there. We do pay-per-clicks through there. Yep. I'm curious to compare Curator to it.
So Curator uses Chime as well. So they white label a Chime basically. So Chime's been my CRM for 5 years as well. And you're absolutely right. I look at it as they're handling basically all my like brokerage stuff. You know what I mean? Like the stuff I'm supposed to be doing, online lead gen. They even assist me in my geographic farming campaigns. And then they give, like, once or twice a week in the Facebook group, they'll be like, use this script and send it to all your sellers right now. And they'll tee it up, put it in a template, and you just have to hit send, and it goes out to your 150 people that you have tagged as seller. Nice. And the open rates are just amazing. It almost like autopilots the marketing side of things for me. Now, that being said, anything with my name on it, so like my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube, that's all me. Like if you're seeing behind the scenes or something, it's not, nobody's running that for me. That's all me. I'm using my thumbs to do that. But they handle like what I think of like the meat and the potatoes of like your business, like where they actually come up with the content and the marketing and the website and the CRM and stuff like that.
Nice. I like that. Okay. So let's talk about the other thing that you're doing. So you're doing Celebrity Agent. You're using that for handwritten cards. What's the success rate? How much is it costing you to do something like that? The reason why I'm asking these questions is I think a lot of agents go out and they spend a crap ton of money on stuff that gets them zero.
Yeah.
And sure. I with this channel, and like my first year in real estate, I was doing great. My second year in real estate, I almost went broke, and it was my best year in real estate. Like I blew it out of the water, and I was going broke. So spending so much money on crap that wasn't getting me business. So and that's why I went to YouTube, because it was free. I could do it. I knew I could just create content, and after a while create business. So I want agents to understand, like, there are free things out there, and there are things that cost money. The things that cost money, if you're going to buy them, then you should be able to get a return on it. So That's why I'm asking the question. So with your Celebrity Agent, what does that look like business wise?
So just take away shout out to Celebrity Agent, but take them away for a second and just talk about geographic farming, right? Typically you can usually identify a farm, and I'm talking about like a neighborhood, a zip code, whatever it is that you want to start to target. And you can get postcards for as cheap as like 75 cents a piece, I think, printed and mailed. And then I've found that handwritten cards tend to perform a little bit better, which is why I lean into those. And those cost anywhere from like $1 to $1.25 a piece. Because usually what the companies are doing is they're using like a robot pen. So it's still a pen, but it's not handwritten. So they can like in mass do these things. But theoretically, you want to find somewhere around 500 plus. Anything less than 500 is fine. It's just like, typically you want to find, you need a big enough net to cast. And so typically you want to find a farm of about 500 homes or more based on your budget. And you need to allocate probably 3 to 6 months without getting like a call. You know what I mean? Because you might not see anything for the first 3 to 6 months as you start to establish yourself in the farm, but you want to establish something. Typically Tom Ferry will say anything with a 5 to 10 or more % turnover rate as well. So you can have your title company pull the records of like how many homes in that neighborhood have sold in the last year, and you divide that by the total amount, and that's the turnover rate. And so typically you want somewhere that's, 5 or 10 or more % turnover rate. And then you want to send them at least a card every month that leads to a landing page. And you can set that up for free on your website or something. But by doing that, you can then cookie the visitors to your landing page with like a retargeting pixel.
Nice.
And so then theoretically, they'll start to see you on ESPN or Amazon or Google, right? Where anywhere where AdSense is. And so not only are you hitting them with the postcard mailer, but you're also driving traffic to your website and then cooking them and retargeting them. So now they are starting to see you everywhere. Right. And if you really want to go a multi-channel, then you're also starting to run curated content via YouTube ads to that area. Yep. And you're starting to run Facebook ads, which you can't do as much you used to be able to do like to the zip code. You can't do that as much anymore. But you can still put it in a general area and start to target Facebook ads that way too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me that Gary Vee went so hard on Facebook, like going back to Facebook, because I want nothing to do with Facebook anymore. I feel like I spent so much money on ads with them that went nowhere. Yeah. So I'm totally like not touching Facebook other than because it's attached to Instagram, whatever I post on an Instagram post on my Facebook page. So it's funny because like I'll go to Facebook and it's like 100 responses. I'm like, what the hell from what? I haven't been on here in 5 days.
Yep. The best thing that I've still found, the most underpriced arbitrage, I feel like, are the Instagram story ads.
Yep.
Those are still really, really cheap, like less than like dollars on the per swipe. You know what I mean? And so like theoretically what you can do is you can create a vertical aspect ad where you're like, hey, Kensington, this is a neighborhood over here. Hey, Kensington, here's your 60-second market update. And then you can actually run it in vertical, right? Film it. And then you can you run a Facebook ad, but you deselect Facebook, Instagram feed, and all the things, leaving only Instagram stories. Right. And theoretically, you run that ad in Instagram stories to Kensington. Now, you can't do it to zip code anymore. So you have to do like a 15-mile radius around there. So maybe be a little bit more broad, maybe do a San Diego market update and then run it to the neighborhood around Kensington. But in sponsored ad. And then theoretically, you're now targeting your neighborhood with a market update for really cheap because you're unselecting Facebook and Instagram posts, and it's only showing up in their Instagram stories, which I feel, at least how I consume content, I live in the stories just more so than I do in the feed at this point. And I almost exclusively don't even go to Facebook anymore. So Instagram stories is probably still the best place to feature your ad spend. And by unselecting the other platforms, you're saving costs and you're only showing it on Instagram stories.
But you're going into Facebook and paying for that ad through Facebook.
Well, right? Yeah, Facebook owns Instagram. So to run the ad, you have to go through the Facebook ads manager to do it. Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't run any ads, so I'm curious. I haven't run ads on anything. People have always like, oh, so what's your ad spend on YouTube? I'm like 0. And they're like, well, how much do you make off 0? I'm like, I did 1.2 GCI last year just from YouTube. And they're like, wait, what? Like, what? Like, are you serious? I'm like, just from YouTube for free, other than what I spent on my videographer to edit. So
YouTube pre-roll ads are actually really, really good spend of money too. I've done a lot of YouTube pre-roll ad spending. That's basically the commercial that comes up before you want to watch the YouTube video that you want. You know what I mean? And then if you do a TrueView ad, you don't pay for it unless they watch 30 seconds or more of the ad. So theoretically, if someone skips through your ad, you don't pay for it, right? So you can target, I believe you can still target by zip code too on Google. They may have changed that, but we were running YouTube market updates into our farm areas by zip code, and they were performing really well, getting thousands and thousands of views. And we don't have the same organic reach that you do. I've never built out. I've just started putting on YouTube Shorts and started to build out a little bit, but it was never. YouTube was always neglected. We parked our videos there because we needed somewhere to host them, but it's not like I think I have like 400 subscribers. It's not like a ton, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, so we were running the ad campaign or the ad product, and it was working really well.
So if you're running the ad campaign, roughly how many leads or how many clients did you get from running the ad campaign?
I never did calls to action on them. And that's probably the wrong move. If you talk to a Google or YouTube person, I was always just doing them as like branding plays, right? Like, hey, here's your market update. And I would run them to the neighborhoods. And so what happened was I would sit down at the seller's table and I would say like, how did you hear about us? And they're like, we see you everywhere. Right. And so, or I would have people, clients, other agents screenshot or take pictures of me on their computer or on their TV. Cause everybody, I mean, I use YouTube TV. And so like, they would take pictures and be like, dude, your video's on in my house. Right. Or stuff like that. And so I knew it was more of a branding play for us when we were running it, as opposed to a call to action. So I never got a true ROI because I never knew specifically why the seller chose me. But I knew that the seller chose me because they saw me everywhere. And so it's like, okay, I don't know which ad that was or which channel that was. I just know that there was an omni-channel approach to how we got in that appointment.
Right. Well, that's one thing I try to emphasize to agents when I'm doing my talks about YouTube is the calls to action, because there are people out there that tell you have to have X amount of calls to action per video, and they're very salesy about it. And my experience with this is when you hard sell anybody, or when you try to have a call to action on YouTube's a search engine. Even those pre-roll ads, people really don't want to watch those pre-roll ads. A lot of times they're trying to click through to get past you. So whatever that first 5 seconds, if you're doing pre-roll ads, the first 5 seconds are so incredibly important, because that's the difference between them. Oh, let me hear the rest of this, right? So, but with the calls to action, I found that on my channel, I can do really creative calls to action that you and I would understand were calls to action, but the consumer on their side of the camera didn't see as a call to action, but they're still like, oh, right. So the whole call to action, like, call me if you're buying a home, it's a call to action, right? Yeah. If you're looking in the area, call me or whatever. That's a call to action. Mm-hmm. Try this. So last week, my client put this home under contract. It was about $1.2 million. We got it below list price, and we got them in some incentives. But it was amazing to me that how many people were still showing in the market, and we were able to beat out 2 other offers still under list price. So that was crazy. That happened last week. Pretty soft call to action, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's telling you that, hey, we're still working in the market. Hey, correct. If you want good deals, we know how we're doing it. And so there's different calls to action you can make on YouTube that actually make a bigger impact versus call me.
It goes, the very first thing we talked about, right, was like basically documenting what you do on Instagram, through Instagram stories. And it's not necessarily creating content with a call to action. Right. You're literally just showing people that you're working. But what's subconsciously happening is that people know that you're hard at work and you're doing stuff all the time. You don't have to tell them all the time exactly what you're doing, because people are seeing that. And so like ultimately with your call to action, it's the same thing. You didn't ask them to call you if they needed anything, but you just told them the success story of what you just did. So when they think of something, they're going to think of you versus going to Zillow or Google, right? Because they've seen you all the time for the last, I tell my team all the time, like, there's nothing we can do to make someone spend $750,000 on a house when they're not ready to buy a house. Right. But what we can do is we can put out content for 1 month or 3 years or 7 years or 10 years so that when they're ready, they call us instead of going to Zillow. And that's ultimately like the thesis of how we market everything. Yeah. We attract our business. We don't chase down leads.
Right. Yeah. And let's be honest, Zillow is doing everything they can to take our business while smiling and selling us leads. So, well, cool, man. So last tips for anybody that just got into real estate or just getting into video? Like, what are your major tips for anybody to go from zero to seeing the success you're seeing with your team?
I think getting onto, it's so funny because like if you're brand new or you're just getting into this, right, who you're surrounding yourself matters a lot. And so like even more, so this is really, real won't even like this, but even more so than the brokerage is the team that you're on or the ecosystem that you're in. Yeah. Right. There's great agents at Compass, and there's shitty agents at Compass, and there's great agents at, you know what I mean? I actually don't know if there's any bad agents at Real yet. I just got here a month ago, but
yeah, I haven't run across any yet.
Exactly. So, but more so than the brokerage is the team and the ecosystem that you're in. So if you can get onto these mastermind calls and you can get onto into the Tom Ferry ecosystem or some version of like a coaching thing, follow Jason Pantana, follow Tom Ferry, follow Jimmy Mackin and Chris Smith. And you get into this ecosystem of learning what the top producers are doing and just watching by attrition, you're just going to get better and better at what you do. And again, don't kill yourself trying to worry about creating content. You can see the Matt Leonetti's and the Dan O'Neills. Don't worry about putting on like professional skits like they do. Like they've been in the business a long time and they're really funny and they're really organic and they get tens of thousands of views on every video they post. But don't worry about the numbers there. Just literally document what you're doing on a daily basis, bring people along for the journey, and you're gonna do a lot better than you think.
And if you're doing nothing on a daily basis, get off the couch and go walk through some homes and video that.
Totally.
They can show you actually, and look, it'll probably take an hour of your day to do that if you're just going to be lazy and stay home. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll always be doing something, right? I mean, then you can get into the core of like, do you know what the hell you're talking about? Do you know how to open a lockbox? I mean, like ultimately there's a certain like foundation that you need to have probably, but yeah, getting up, going into the office, making your calls, and then like setting aside time to actually produce content. And if you don't have anything to say, then just go to the MLS, look for vacant homes and go do property tours.
Nice, man. Appreciate that. Last question I have for you, and then we'll bounce out of here. So you were at Compass for a while. I mean, you've been around real estate for a while, and you just made the move to Real. Why in the world would you leave such a big name brand like Compass to come to a 6,000 agent brokerage? Is what people are thinking. What's the answer to that?
Do you know what's funny is I had multiple people tell me that, right? What are you doing? Like, not necessarily like, why are you leaving Compass, but what is this? What is Real? I've never heard of this before. That is so random, right? That you're leaving, in essence, the number one brokerage in the country per sales volume to come to Real, basically this upstart. And for me, it was about, it was twofold. The battle was on two fronts. I was with Compass for 4 years. I think the company is an A+ company when it comes to A+ leadership, but it costs A+ money. And so ultimately, when I evaluated my P&L at the end of my 4th year, so it was a situation where I was like, my bet is that we can reallocate that money better ourselves. Right. And so that was it. And so the cloud-based brokerage model had always intrigued me, actually, since I even joined Compass 4 years ago. And there were some other companies out there that offer a cloud-based brokerage model, but it was not ever a culture fit for me. And so what happened was, over the last 6 months or so, people in my ecosystem through Curator and through Tom Ferry and through these other things, I started seeing some people that I really respected make the move. And so this creator culture that started brewing at Real was really intriguing to me. It gave me the opportunity to get into a cloud-based model with rev share and stock options and the things that I always liked about that cloud-based model. But it allowed me to align with some people that I, in the best terms to say, are my people. Like, these are people who are literally diving into social media, video marketing first, growing their business through an attraction, not a salesy chasing way. And ultimately allowed me to get into what I felt was a potential for a high growth company on the upswing. And so it became a no-brainer for me when I was evaluating. And I like to say that I evaluated some options, but it was always going to be Real or staying at Compass. Like, if I was able to maybe work it out, but at the end of the day, it didn't come close when it came to the monetary side there. So shout out to them. I think they're doing big things. I didn't burn it down on the way out. My wife still works at Compass. She's an operations manager. So I think that the company has A+ leadership. It's a good company. It's just expensive. You know what I mean? And so for me and our business, it wasn't the right fit anymore. And Real was there to take me in, and I'm stoked so far.
Nice. Yeah. I get reached out to by a lot of agents at multiple brokerages, Compass being one of them. And one of the first things I talk about or ask them is like, hey, so let me go through, how much did you spend in your commission last year then? And I mean, I'll have agents be like, oh, I spent about $300,000. I'm like, okay, well, let's break this down. So if you could spend $100,000, well, I mean, a lot of it too is like, oh, the marketing's great, the branding's great, everything's great. Well, if you spent 50 grand a year on killer marketing, 50 grand a year is a lot of money on marketing. Think about how much money, if you paid your cap and then you paid
$4,000 a month. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money that you would save, that you could put in back into your business. You could put back into, growing a team, buying good quality people to be assistants and stuff like that. And so once I typically tell people that, show them that, they go, oh crap, yeah, this makes a huge difference. So, well, hey man, I appreciate you jumping on. We're going to jump on real quick on his Instagram, and we're going to do a little thing on his Instagram, but I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining Agent Content Creators. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe, find my other channel, just my name, Jeremy Knight, find Jason's channel and follow him on Instagram. Is it just at Jason Cassidy?
There's an underscore in there. Jason _ Cassidy. ITY. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've seen his Instagram on here. So follow him there, and we will see you in the next episode. Appreciate you.